beautiful day in Seattle today too. I took a walk this morning and it was like sunshine.
Anyway, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of Baking with Sephardic Bikur Cholim. And tonight we have Rinah Benoliel all the way from Seward Park making us meat Filas. We are so excited. And we're also with the Sephardic Brotherhood of Jewish Brotherhood of America, and they're co-sponsoring this. So we're happy to have people joining from around the U.S. and probably even around the world to watch Rinah demonstrate how to make meat Filas. Rinah, take it away.
Welcome everyone. I'm so happy you're here today. My name is Rinah Benoliel, and I'm just gonna set this out here right away. I am an Ashkenazi girl from New Jersey, but I have been married to a wonderful Seattle Sephardic guy for 25 years, and I've been living in the Seward Park neighborhood in Seattle for 20 years, and part of the SBH community for that long. So I am married in, but I really took to the Seattle Sephardic baking tradition, the Sephardic baking tradition that's really still very strong here. And I would never call myself an expert by any means, but I've done a lot of baking and I enjoy it tremendously. And I'm not scared to make mistakes, and I'm not really into perfection. So it's really all about having fun, and of course eating fantastic food and connecting to our tradition and our culture. And really passing that on to my kids and my family, and having them understand how important it is, how important food is in our world. So I'm really glad you're all here. Ask questions, and Rabbi Hassan will kind of read them to me. I'm too far away from my computer to read the chat, so feel free to ask away, and I will do my best to answer. So, you know, I started cooking a long time ago, actually, when I first got married, and kind of a mix of people teaching me cookbooks, different things. So let's just have fun today. Let's get started. I'm gonna wash my hands first. I tell my kindergartners to sing the ABCs so that they know they've washed their hands long enough. I'm not sure I did it quite that long, but we'll call it good for now. So the recipe, what I asked for everyone to do is to kind of make the filling in advance. If you've already done it, great. I am gonna show you just how I quickly do the filling. I won't do the entire thing, but I'm just gonna kind of do a basic start to show you what I do for the filling. So I do it in a non-stick pot. It just makes the meat a little easier to kind of mix and stir. I do it on a medium heat. I put maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the pot. I'm not always a big measurer, so please excuse that. And then I already have my onions chopped.
Rinah, don't want to interrupt you. What should the oven be preheated to? What temperature?
Oh, good question. Okay, oven preheated to 350. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So I'm going to put my chopped onions into the olive oil. And I'm going to let those cook. And what I do is actually, right when I put those onions in, I actually season it at that point with salt and pepper. The recipe might call for seasoning at the end, but I find if you do it in the beginning and it all cooks together, it makes a difference, I think. So I'm going to give it a stir. I'm going to let those cook. And while those are cooking, I'm actually going to start the folding part with the Fila. So if you already have your filling, now's your time to get it out. I'm going to put this back here. Okay, so I have my filling that I did this morning. You do want the filling to be a little bit cooled off when you're working with it, so that, you know, burn your fingers. And I think it's just better for the Fila when it's cooled off. Otherwise, it can kind of get it a little soggy. So this is the Fila dough I have. I will say, this is just a little tip on Fila that I learned in Seattle. There is fresh Fila to be found at Big John's in Seattle. And when you use Fila that has only been in a refrigerator and not frozen, it is a little bit easier to work with. You can use the one from the freezer. I've done it a million times. You just have to let it defrost, but often that freezing process, I think it creates kind of extra moisture, and often the Fila, the pieces of Fila will be stuck together. So if you've ever worked with Fila, you know it can be a little frustrating, but the fresh Fila kind of alleviates that a little bit and makes it a little easier to handle. So I unroll my Fila on my counter, and then I didn't put this in the the recipe, so I'll just say now, you want to get a kitchen towel, and you just want to place it over the Fila, and that's so that it doesn't dry out. And every time, maybe move it back a little bit. Sorry, I'm just realizing you can't see it. Yeah. Oh, maybe you can see it now. Okay, so every time you take a piece of Fila out, you're gonna recover it so that it doesn't dry out. I do see a question. What number? This is number 4. I don't really know my Fila numbers. I just usually buy whatever's at Big John's, and this one works great. It's a thinner one. I have used the thicker one before, and that's it can work for this. You're just going to have a thicker crust. It's more for like pies or things that need to be a little heartier, but these are a little more delicate. Okay, so I'm going to take my towel off. I'm going to take 1 sheet of Fila off of the top, and I'm going to put it on my counter. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, maybe move back a little bit more. Sorry, 1 second. Another thing you need right now, which I forgot, is a sharp knife. No, that's fine. Okay, so I have my bowl with olive oil, and I have a pastry brush. You want to take your olive oil, and what I do is I actually just make little drips across my entire piece of Fila dough. That way, when I spread it, I've already got stuff on there to work with, and it makes it not as heavy on my olive oil. So first I just drip little drips of olive oil on my Fila, and then I really gently take my brush, and you might want to put one hand down on the Fila to kind of anchor it, and you just want to brush that olive oil across the whole piece of Fila. If you miss a spot, it's fine. No big deal. Again, I'm really not into perfection when it comes to baking. I'm much into enjoying the process and not worrying that much about how perfect it is. So you have 1 piece of Fila down. Now you're going to take your second piece of Fila, and you're going to really gently lay it right on top. So what I do is I actually line it up at the top like this, and then just gently lay it down. You want it to be as close as possible that the 2 layers are right on top of each other. Can you guys see? It's a little hard to see because my counter is white and the Fila is white. I'll lift it up a little bit. And then you're going to do the same process with the olive oil. Just going to drip little drips across the entire sheet. And then I'm going to brush. Same thing. You want to get as much coverage as you can without worrying too much. If you get a rip or a tiny tear, it's really okay. Because we're going to be folding these and using many layers, I find that it's pretty forgiving, and you don't need to worry too much about a small rip or a tear in the Fila. You do not need to discard the whole thing because of 1 rip or 1 tear. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and give my onions a stir. And they're looking good. Okay, I should have mentioned, I laid the Fila out the short way. So the Fila is a rectangle, and I laid it out so that it's not facing me the long way, it's facing me the short way. Now, you want to cut this into strips. It's not an exact science, but I did try to measure how big my strips were, and they were about 2.5 to 3 inches. So if you want to get out a ruler and make sure you have your strips, you know, just right, go for it. I don't worry too much about this part, but you want a strip just about that big to make your triangle. So I have this sheet. Yeah.
Can we use a cookie sheet instead of being directly on the countertop?
Sure, you can. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I thought. Just wanted to check.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't want the mess on your counter, definitely put it on a big sheet pan and work on the sheet pan. That's fine. And you want to have another sheet pan, I should have said this, ready to go with parchment on it to do your baking. So once you fold it, you're going to put it on a sheet pan to bake. But yeah, if you want to work on something not straight on your counter, go for it. I clean my counters really well before I start, and I just do it right on it because I find that to be the easiest, but do what works for you in your kitchen. Okay, so I'm going to take a sharp knife, and I'm going to cut strips just right down the sheet. 1. I'm going to get 5 strips out of this sheet. What size is the sheet that I have? Oh, I see it. It's a 12 by 17 sheet. The sheet that I have is 12 by 17. I got 5 strips out of it. Fila does come in different sizes. So I would say, again, if you want to try and measure your strip, about 2.5 to 3 inches should work. Okay, once you have your strips, and I'm going to try and separate them a little bit so you could see. You're going to take your filling, okay? I use a teaspoon, not a measurement teaspoon, but just an actual teaspoon. And I just put about a teaspoon, you know, about that much on the bottom of my Fila. And again, this is something that when you do it and get the feel for it, that's how you learn by doing. And it really doesn't matter too much if there's a little more or a little less filling. It's really much more about just making good food. And no one's going to notice if you're filling it. If yours are a little more full or a little less full, it'll still be super delicious. I forgot to cover my Fila. Here I gave this whole speech about covering my Fila, and I didn't do it. Okay, so now I have my Filas. Can you see my strips with a little bit of filling at the bottom? Can everyone see that? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay, so this is the part where you make your triangle. Now, if you've ever seen like a flag folded in a ceremony, that's exactly what we're doing for this. My husband said it's also the way that kids make footballs out of paper to play football, like a little paper football game. I've never done that myself, but if you've seen a flag folding, that's what we're doing. So we're going to start at the bottom left-hand corner of our Fila, and we're going to bring that corner up so that bottom, it like folds up and you have kind of the start of your triangle, okay? Now you're going to take the bottom right hand, which is now a point, and you're just going to lift it up, bring it straight up so that it's even on that side. Once you do that, you're going to do the same thing. Now you're going to take your bottom right hand corner and bring it to the side. And you should be making a small triangle right now. Again, now you're going to take your bottom left hand corner and just go straight up. Again, over. Now, depending on how big your strip is, you might have a little flap at the end. This is where the whole that perfection thing that I was talking about just has no place in my kitchen. I just tuck it, unfold it. I don't make a big deal of it. And I'm going to put it on my pan. Pan right here, and I'm going to get it started on my pan. Do you want to lift that up so you can kind of see? I'm wondering,
can you fold one over with the pink towel so we can get a little bit more contrast?
Ooh, what a great idea. Yes.
I get the idea, but I just might help those who are trying this for the first time.
Let's see if I can find, that's a really good idea. I'm going to get another towel, because that one's covering my Fila. And I'm going to lift it up. Can you guys see this better now? Is that a better view?
Much better, much better.
Okay, great. Let me stir my onions while I'm talking. Okay, so let's try this again with the contrast. So I'm going to take that bottom left-hand corner and just bring it up to the other side. And you'll see right now you actually have a triangle shape at the bottom of your Fila. Then bottom right-hand corner and go straight up. You see that triangle? Bottom right-hand corner again to the other side. And then bottom left-hand corner, straight up. I'm going to pick it up and show it. Let's do a little more folding. Oh, look at this one. This one I've got just a perfect little edge to tuck right under as I finished it. And I'm going to put it on my pan. You want to try lifting the, I'm going to have my son lift up my laptop and kind of come down right next to me so maybe we can see it a little bit.
That's even better, Rinah. Just a question on this is, do we need to oil the pan?
I put parchment down on my pan. If you don't have parchment, yes, maybe a little spray, just anything to make it not stick. If you have Silpat, you can use Silpat. I'm a big parchment paper girl. Yeah, anything so that it doesn't stick on the bottom. That's exactly right. Okay, so my son's holding it. Yeah, let me turn it this way so I can kind of show. So bottom left-hand corner up, bottom right-hand corner, straight up. And then again, and you just keep folding that triangle. And if you see what I mean now, we have multiple layers of Fila right now going around the filling. So that's what I mean about the tears, that it really is not going to matter all that much. If you have, like, let's say one single tear, I'm going to move this over here. If you have one single tear in the middle here, it's going to have enough layers on top of it that it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Up and over.
Maybe it's lunchtime, but I'm salivating over this. It's great.
It really starts to hit you when they're in the oven. That's the best part. Well, my lucky family, on Friday, I did a trial run of these because I just wanted to kind of get it set in my head of how I was going to do it. And they, on Friday afternoon, got to have a pre-Shabbat meat Fila fresh out of the oven waiting for them. Everyone was very happy.
Delicious.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to kind of go through that process one more time, but before I do that, I'm actually going to add my meat. So if you're making the filling and you're following along, we've been sauteing our onions till they're soft. Now I'm going to add in the meat. Now when you add in the meat, you actually want to make sure that you break it up right away. Otherwise, it will just be kind of a solid brick, and we don't want that. So you want to kind of get in there. I use my wooden spoon that I've had since I was first married. And you just want to break it up as much as you can. You're almost mashing it.
Rinah, have you tried any other meats like those who are on no red meat? So people having ground turkey, or people who are doing Beyond Burgers like veggie meats or anything like that?
I have not. I know people do it with lamb, and that works really well. So if you're a lamb fan, this is delicious with lamb or with a lamb and beef mix. I have not tried it with the Beyond. We have made Beyond Burgers at home, and it's very exciting to have a cheeseburger, I must say.
So I must tell you that Kohava is trying it right now, the Beyond Meat.
Oh.
She's trying it, so I'll be able to give you the answer when I get home. But she's trying it with the Beyond Burger.
They definitely cook up like meat, so I can't imagine that it wouldn't work. I use like a soy, a meat alternative when I make tacos and other things, but I've never used it for this. I will say I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to some of these foods, and I really like to make them the way that they have been made for many years. I will say that this recipe, by the way, I wanted to take this out. So Michael's Nona, my husband Michael, his Nona, Ray Benoliel, gave me this I think when I first moved to Seattle many years ago. It's a really old Sephardic Bikur Cholim Ladies Auxiliary Cookbook, and it has these cute little tabs, and if you have this and you go to the meat section, this is where I actually got this recipe. It's just in the part that says meat filling. And I actually learned to make this from this cookbook. So I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a great cookbook. And you can use this filling for pastels also. So if you want to make the dough yourself, I use it with Fila, but if you want to make the dough yourself, that would be a meat pastel. But it's the same filling. I don't know if Rabbi Hassan, do we know if this book is still available?
I think we have a version of it.
It's fantastic.
But some of the recipes I hear are not quite exact.
So
Trial and error to figure out which ones actually work.
You have to sometimes be a little bit creative in your reading of the recipes. It doesn't always give an exact measurement. If you're willing to kind of, be a little adventurous in the kitchen, you can have fun with the cookbook. But yeah, this recipe though is pretty much written. I follow it as written. The one thing I do is the recipe calls for you to put rice in with the meat, which is another way of doing it. And I just wasn't a big fan of that. So the other part of this, there's a variation, and the variation calls for you to do it with matzah meal, which is what I do. And really, it's just to soak up that extra juice. And I'll show you that when that filling is done. Okay, so let's work on another. Fila. I'm going to take my towel off. I'm going to grab one sheet of Fila. Place it down on my counter, and I'm just going to kind of go through that same process again.
Yeah, Rinah, just to share, Terry Azos just told us that we do have, it's exactly the same cookbook with a different cover, and they are available for purchase at SBH. So you can call the SBH office. I'm putting the number in the chat down the bottom there, and Diana will be very happy to send people
I highly recommend. And you know what, put my phone number in the chat. And if you just want to call me and talk about any recipe that you're not sure about, I will chat about it. I love this cookbook. I've really gotten a lot of great recipes from this cookbook. And I've even had some traditions in my family that have started from recipes in this cookbook. Like when we have a fast day, our traditional breakfast meal is something directly out of this cookbook from the section, I believe it's the section called, this is my favorite. It's called, oh man, Old Meals, Comidas Viejas, old meals. And I think that means it's things that used to be traditional, but maybe have gotten out of favor or whatever. And one of the recipes in here, there's a few really nice ones like beef brains with egg sauce. Oh wait, it's not, here it was, I thought this was where it was. And I'm not even finding it.
Classic.
It's eggs. We make eggs in a tomato sauce. It's almost like a shakshuka, but without all of the extra vegetables. And we just make the tomato sauce and we cook our eggs in that tomato sauce. And that is our traditional breakfast meal with bread. So, and it is in here. It might not be in that old meal section. I apologize, but it's in that cookbook.
Yeah. Terry, okay. Terry, if you know how much the book is, can you put it in the chat?
That's great.
I want to say $20, $25, but I'm not sure. Okay.
Okay, so I took I did my first sheet, I oiled it. I'm taking my second sheet of Fila. I'm going to do that same treatment that I did to that first one, where I'm going to drip oil all along that sheet of Fila and then brush it. Okay, Michael found it. It's in the section called Diversos, miscellaneous, and it's called Huevos con Tomate. Thank you. It's eggs in tomato sauce, and it's really become our family tradition and something we look forward to at the end of a fast. It's kind of a light meal, and I had never heard of it or seen it growing up. It was not something I ever had any experience with. So this cookbook has really brought a lot into my life, into my family. I love it. Okay, and we're gonna kind of do that same thing. I'm gonna make, you know what? I'm gonna try something different this time. I'm gonna try making 6 strips. I felt that making 5 was a little bit big. I'm gonna cut this in half, and then I'm gonna make 3 strips out of each half. So my strips are gonna be a little bit thinner this time, and I'm gonna see how that turns out. Why not? Okay, so let's do the same thing where we're gonna put that strip on a towel so that you guys can see it a little bit better, a little bit more contrast.
There's one underneath, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, it's fine. Can you give that a stir? I'm gonna have my husband and sous chef Michael give my meat a stir. So my real first introduction to Sephardic cooking was with Michael's nonna, Benoliel. And she was the daughter of Rabbi Maimon, who came to Seattle from Turkey to be the rabbi at SBH. So Michael's family has been in this community for a very long time. And when Michael and I first got married, we actually lived in New York. Like I said, I'm from New Jersey, and we met in New York and got married and moved into an apartment in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And Michael's nonna, Ray, came to visit. She was coming to see her son, Rabbi Chaim Benoliel, and she came to our house. She came to our apartment, and she asked if she could spend Shabbat with us. And I was really honored and also really nervous because his grandmother was coming for the first time, and I was somehow going to try and make Shabbat for her. And I was newly married and hadn't had a lot of cooking experience at that time. So the first thing she did is when she walked into the apartment, and this is just, it just set the stage for a beautiful Shabbat. She walked into the apartment and she was carrying a bag of sugar and a bottle of oil and a carton of eggs. And she handed us a note, and Michael actually found the note. Sometimes it's good to be married to a hoarder. And
what?
I'm going to read it. And it says, "Dear Michael and Rinah," and this is in her handwriting on a little notepad with a little picture of something in Israel on it. And it says, "Dear Michael and Rinah, may your home be as sweet as this sugar, as full as this egg, and as smooth as this oil. Many happy years together with good health. Love, Nonna." So when I saw that note, I knew that we were going to have a great time together. She was a really special person, warm and loving and kind and sweet. Thank you. And then we started talking about what we were going to have for Shabbat. And I said, well, I've kind of figured out dinner. We'll have some chicken and some rice, but I haven't really figured out what we're going to do for lunch yet. And she said, oh, honey, let's have barakas. And I said, I have no idea how to make barakas. And she said, no problem. I'll tell you what to do. We'll have barakas. We'll make some huevos haminados, and we'll have a great lunch. It'll be one. We'll have a little salad. We're good. And she, just in her calm and easygoing way, whipped up the dough. We had the ingredients. She made the filling. If I'm not mistaken, she made it with potato buds and not with fresh potatoes. So even Anana sometimes takes shortcuts. I'm pretty sure that's true, right? I don't think she made it with potatoes. I think she made it with potato buds. And you know, we added the cheese and we got the filling going. And just in my little tiny Manhattan kitchen, she taught me how to make barakas. And she didn't do it with any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about it, you know, having to be a certain way or being fancy. It was just easygoing and calm and just the way food should be, just made with love. And that was really my introduction to baking Sephardic food. And it was a perfect introduction because from that point on, I was never scared. I wasn't nervous. I knew that it was something that I could do, that I had the ability to do if I was just willing to try. And it really set the stage for me to many, many years of happy baking. So I just appreciated that intro very, very much. And it was also kind of my intro into Michael's family. So that was super special. Okay, so I'm on my last strip right here, and I'm just going to show it one more time, and then we're going to move on to something else. Where are we time-wise? Oh, we're doing okay. Okay, so I'm putting that filling on the bottom. I'm going to show it one more time. We're going to go up from the bottom left-hand corner to the side, then bottom right-hand corner up, bottom right-hand corner to the side, bottom left-hand corner up. We're just going to fold that up into a triangle. Okay. So at this point, I'm actually going to take my pan of Filas. It's not completely full, but I'm going to pause for a little bit and take my pan of Filas. And what you want to do is, and this is getting them ready to bake. Let me turn my oven on to 350. Oh, it already is. Perfect. And I'm going to take another bowl. And you're just going to crack an egg in a bowl and do an egg wash on the top of these Fila. Work. So, and I just do one whole egg. I don't separate the yolk. I don't know. Might not be the exact right way to do it, but this is the way I always do it. I beat that egg up in a bowl. And then I take my pastry brush, and you're going to want to treat them a little bit gently because it is that Fila and it can kind of easily crack. And you just want to really lightly brush the tops with egg. Yeah, can you give it a stir? Thank you. I think my meat filling is actually almost done. Is it pink anymore?
Yes.
It is? Okay. So you want to cook that meat filling, because since we're still doing that at the same time, until it's not pink anymore. You just want the meat to be all brown. I don't know how that works with that Beyond. I don't know if that, I think it does turn brown actually. Okay.
Chava will keep us posted.
Yes, perfect. I'm really curious. I am really curious about it. It's good. Okay, so once you brush all of your Fila with egg, you want to put the egg down, and I'm actually going to put this in the oven. You bake it at 350. It's about 20 to 25 minutes, and you want it to be kind of a golden brown. How brown? That's up to you. If you like it, here, I put these in the oven. Thanks. If you like it to be a little darker, if you like it a little lighter, that's kind of personal preference. I'm going to show you a pan that I baked off this morning, and I kind of like it a little bit on the lighter side.
Do you put sesame seeds on? Can you put sesame seeds on?
It is traditional to sprinkle sesame seeds after you brush the egg. Thank you for mentioning that. I am not a sesame seed fan, so I never put them on. But yes, it is traditional if you like sesame to put sesame seeds on top. It looks pretty. I just don't like the way it tastes personally, but yes.
And how long in the oven for?
It's 20 to 25 minutes. So set your oven to 20 minutes, check it at 20, and then, you know, set your timer to 20 minutes, check it at 20. Yeah, I'm gonna put the timer on. I'm just telling Michael, put the timer on, and then another 5, usually about 25 minutes. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you another way to do this. If you really don't have time to fold the triangles or just don't have the inclination, I was talking with Rabbi Hassan before we got on the call that, you know, Sephardic baking is labor intensive. The pastries tend to take a lot of time to make because you're wrapping each one individually. Some people absolutely do not want to put any time into that, which I completely understand. We're busy, working, family. I get that completely. I have found that when you, when I have a day that's, what?
Meat is done.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna turn the meat off and then I'll continue saying, I found that when it comes to baking, if I have a few hours and nothing really pressing, like having to make dinner or anything like that, I find it's really relaxing. I actually find that the folding and the filling, each one, kind of puts me in a zone, zen, whatever you want to call it. It's just a really relaxing and enjoyable place to be. And doing repetitive things over and over again kind of it eases your mind and lets you really kind of float into another space where you can maybe think about things or maybe not think about things, however you decide. But I really enjoy it. But if you have a busy day and you want to make that filling and just kind of whip it quickly into a dish, I have another dish for you, which is super easy. And it's just making it into a meat fila, like squares in a pan. So instead of individually wrapping each one, you make it in a pan and you bake it the same way, and it's delicious. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So yummy. Okay, before I start that, let me just finish the filling because my meat is browned and it's ready to go to the next part. So I'm just gonna show you how I finish off this filling. I use matzah meal. If you did 2 pounds of meat, it's about ½ a cup of matzah meal. If you halved it, it's about ¼ cup. You sprinkle it in. And you mix that filling, and you'll see, because you're making it with ground meat, a little bit of juice fat is gonna come off of that meat. So what the matzah meal is doing is really just binding it. It's getting rid of some of that extra juice, but keeping the flavor in there. So instead of draining it off, you're keeping the flavor in, and the matzah meal just soaks it up. If you find there's still a little bit of extra juice on the bottom, just add a little bit more matzah meal. This is really by feel and by looking at it. And you want to mix it around until it is, the filling should be, you know, it's not going to hold together like clumped like a dough, but it should be on the drier side. It shouldn't be liquidy. You shouldn't have any liquid pooling in the mixture at all. So mine kind of looks like this. Then you let that cool a little bit. And the last thing you'd want to add is chopped parsley. If you didn't season your onions at the beginning with salt and pepper, season it now. If you're ready to go meat, taste it. It's cooked, it's totally fine to taste it. And if you want to taste it to make sure it has the right salt and pepper, go for it and taste it. So you would sprinkle in your chopped parsley, mix that in. I'll try and show it. And what you'll have is a really pretty beef mixture with some little flecks of green in it. And this is what you're going to let cool for the eventual folding. So I'm actually going to put this to the side to let it cool. Okay, so now let's do our second meat fila, okay? I use these glass Pyrex pans. They're amazingly versatile. Everyone has them pretty much. And this is a 9 by 13 pan. I'm going to take that same olive oil and I'm going to brush it along the bottom. And you want to do a little bit on the sides too, because this is going to get stacked up and it's going to run along the sides and to help it not stick as much. Now my Fila sheets are pretty big. Like I said, I think they're 12 by 17. So it's really too big for this pan. So this is my little trick that I do, because if I tried to do it on the whole pan, it would hang over the edge. You can put that in the pan and it'll kind of go up the sides, but we're going to put a lot of layers of Fila and it's going to be very doughy on the side. So what I do is I turn it this way and I lay it in the pan kind of the long way. And you'll see there's a little extra hanging over the edge. Press the part that's in the pan down. Give it that same loving olive oil treatment that we gave to the triangles where we sprinkle and then brush. And then fold that extra piece right over it, and you'll see it'll fit perfectly into that 9x13 pan. So you now have 2 layers. You took that one piece of Fila, you turned it into 2 layers. Give it love. Give it the olive oil treatment.
Doing the same thing the other lady did.
Such a great shortcut. I love it.
So you can, I mean, you can sit and cut them. That's definitely, you know, if you want to, but I find just folding it over works just fine. So you want to end up with 10 layers of Fila on the bottom. So basically for me, that's 5 double sheets, okay? So same thing, lay it out, give it the olive oil, lay that extra piece, just flap it right over, and we now have 4 layers. And I'm going for 10. I'm gonna keep doing this until, again, I've got 10 single layers of Fila in the pan. So I told you all about my intro to Sephardic cooking, but I will say, and this is with tremendous gratitude to SBH, the Ladies Auxiliary, and the Myman family, I really learned a tremendous amount from doing baking at SBH. The first time I think I baked in a group baking, it was for a Myman family reunion. It must have been in, boy, I'm not gonna remember the year. I'm gonna say 2004. The first Myman family reunion I ever came to was in 1999. It was the year we moved to Seattle. 5 years later, we had one in 2004. And we had a lunch, a Shabbat lunch, and all of the many members of the family got together to bake at SBH for the lunch. And that was kind of my first introduction to the concept of baking in a group. I had never baked with other people before. I had only done baking, well, other than, you know, with Michael's Benoliel, like I said, I had only done baking in my own home. I had never baked anywhere else with a large group of people. Am I up to 6? I think I'm up to 6.
You're up to 6. Okay.
I'm gonna keep going. Mike's counting for me because I won't remember. And I was amazed. I was just blown away by how fun it was. There was just incredible camaraderie among the group. I think it was mostly women, but there was probably a few men there as well, you know, for this Myman lunch. And I learned a lot. There was experts there who were right by my side. We set up these long tables in the kitchen at SBH, and we all just sat there baking together. So if I, you know, wasn't sure how to do something, there was someone right next to me to tell me exactly what to do. And the best part is that once you get in your groove, and like I was saying, that kind of, you know, you're just going, you're folding, you're doing it. It's taking a long time, but it's okay. You don't really have anywhere else to be. It's fine. This is what you're doing. This is the moment. You're in that moment. And what would happen was the conversations that would start, and people talking about, oh, did you see this movie? Or have you seen this show? Or did you hear about so-and-so's son who's getting married? Or so-and-so who just had a new baby? And it just became the most amazing fellowship of people to just, you know, just the cooking brought us together, and it just opened up just the most amazing conversations and enjoyable laughter among this group of people. And then from that experience, I really started baking for the SBH Bazaar. When the bazaar started again and baking for that started up, I couldn't be as regular as I wanted to be because I still had young children at home. But it was the same exact experience where we had amazing volunteers who would get everything ready at SBH, and then people would come in and the ingredients were all there ready to go, and the dough was all there ready to go. And we just sat at these long tables and baked and folded, and just really, for me, really learned how to do. I mean, I've made biscochos, and I've made meat pastels, and I've made barecas, and I've made bulamas, which is truly a group experience because we do it at this massive tables, and we spread out the dough to cover the entire table, and then roll up the bulamas. And I was never able to get them quite as perfect as other people, but you know, I tried. And it was just such a special part of my life and such a special part of our community here at SBH and our community in Seattle. And it amazes me. I love food and I love to cook, and to be in a community where we really respect that food culture and respect the traditions. I was like a perfect fit. I'm not from here, but I really feel that now I'm a Seattleite. I'm an SBH person. I belong here. It was just a perfect fit for who I was, to come into that incredible food culture and the just amazing camaraderie that happens when a group of volunteers gets together and just is doing something for the good of the synagogue and the good of our community. So that was kind of my second jump into Sephardic cooking, and hopefully we'll continue. Okay, so I've got 10 layers here. So I'm gonna take the same filling that I was using. It's the exact same filling. You can do it. If you make a full recipe, 2 pounds, that will be great in here. You'll kind of get a really big, thick meat Fila pie, or whatever you want to call it, meat Fila squares. You can do it with 1 or 1.5 pounds too, and it'll just be a little thinner. I don't think it matters that much exactly how much you use personally, but I usually do the 2 pounds because this is a very popular dish in my family, and everybody loves it. And the more meat filling, the better. Okay, so I just put the rest of that filling that I had pre-done earlier. I'm gonna spread.
We could do 3 pounds if you wanted.
3? That might not fit in the pan. Maybe if you had a bigger pan. Okay, so we're gonna spread out our meat, and you want it to touch the edges. This is not the kind of pie that's fully encased in dough. It's really more squares, and it's okay that the meat shows at the sides. It's meant to. So, and you just kind of want to get it as flat as you can in that pan. And then you're going to do the exact same thing to the top. So 10, you could even do 8 layers on the top, that's fine. But I'm going to just kind of repeat exactly what I did at the bottom, right at the top. So I'm going to put half in. Brush it with oil. And then fold it over. Okay, I'm going to keep working on this. Are there any other questions?
Get to do more.
What's that? Oh, sorry, Michael just reminded me I missed the oil. Each layer, you want each layer to have oil in between it. It's what makes it really crispy and delicious.
Yeah, Leah Littman just said if you want to do the 3 to 4 pounds, just use a giant sheet pan or get it working.
Oh, great, yeah, exactly. A bigger pan. For a big crowd, yes, a bigger pan. For sure. And yeah.
And when would you serve this traditionally? Would this be a Shabbat lunch dish, Friday night? Like, what is it? Well, not Shabbat lunch if you're going to have a dairy lunch.
I do this for Friday night. This to me is a Friday night or a holiday meal, a nighttime holiday meal. It's one of our family's favorites. So I make it, not all the time, but relatively often. And this meat filling is so versatile. I mean, if you wanted to get puff pastry and you wanted to wrap it in puff pastry, you could do it in that. Like I said, if you wanted to make that pastel dough, you can make it. Does it
reheat well? How do you?
Yes. So it reheats really well. You can actually freeze it. Yeah. Oh.
Well,
you can actually, what?
The oil.
Oh, the oil. He's reminding me I'm forgetting about the oil again. Thank you. So you can freeze it. It freezes really well, and then just take it out of the freezer, let it come to room temperature, and then heat it up in the oven. But you can even make it, if you're making it for Friday night, you can make it on a Thursday. You have 2 choices, actually. You can either get it right to the stage before you bake it and freeze it, or stick it in the fridge and then bake it right before you're going to eat it. I've baked it and then just warm it up again. I think either way is really fine. I think people have their own personal preferences, but I think it works really well.
I love it as an appetizer at smachot or kiddush is always very nice.
Yeah, a really nice way to serve it as an appetizer is with a bunch of salads. Like you could do it with like hummus and tahina, Israeli salad, eggplant salad, or matbucha, and then this could be kind of like the star of your appetizer course in each of all those salads.
There's a couple of questions here about the difficulties of Fila dough. And someone writes, Amy writing here that her dough, it normally falls apart. What's she doing wrong? Why is the dough falling apart?
Okay, so if you live in Seattle, you want to try and find, really anywhere, I'm not sure where to find it in other places. I think the key is trying to find fresh Fila dough. when I say fresh, I don't mean something that somebody made that day. I mean Fila dough that has not been frozen. So you want to try to find, and what I would say is based on where I get it here in Seattle, which is a place called Big John's. It's Pacific Food Importers. Big John's, they actually just moved. They're right on Rainier and Dearborn, really easy to get to. And it's a specialty food store. So you want to get it at the type of store where maybe you'd find olives and specialty cheeses and lots of pasta. So a store that might have like an Italian section, a Greek section, Middle Eastern type foods. That's the type of food store that will probably have Fila dough in the refrigerated section. And what I find is that's the key. If you can only get frozen Fila, my biggest tip to you is get 2 boxes. Because that way, if one box or a couple, you lose a couple of sheets, it's not the end of the world. You have some backup sheets of Fila to use. If you do get it from the freezer, my tip is defrost it in the refrigerator. So try to really kind of give it a nice slow defrost. And then you want to take it out at room temperature when you're ready to work with it. So you want to, let's say you're going to make Filas that afternoon. You want to take it out in the morning. Nothing is going to happen to it if it sits on the counter. It's just dough. It doesn't have eggs or anything in it that are going to suffer from sitting out. So you really want to let it get to room temperature. I'm running out of olive oil. Just a sec.
And as you're asking about olive oil, how much olive oil are you using, or it doesn't really matter? It's just making sure there's enough.
Just make sure there's enough. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe total I've used a cup so far, which sounds like a lot, but this is making food for a lot of people, so it's really spread out. But don't be too concerned. These are special foods. You know, these are treat foods. They're once in a while foods. It's not a food that you're going to eat every day. So I say go for it in the olive oil department and just don't worry too much about it. Okay, I'm on my last one. I think I've done 8 so far. Oh, so I just got a tear, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's going to be fine. I'm on my last.
Questions about Pesach recipes. Could I substitute matzah instead of the puff pastry?
Yes, you can, and we call that Magina.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about Magina? Because I love Magina, but I want you to tell everyone about it.
Oh, okay. So Magina is just this same recipe, but in between layers of matzah. Oh gosh, I feel like it's in the Sephardic cookbook. I think you soak it in egg. I'm pretty sure that's how you do it. Did I make it this year? I don't think I made it this year. So I'm going to quickly look in the Sephardic cookbook, or if someone else wants to jump in, I will take some help in this department.
I know my friend Steve Condiati from the Sephardic Brotherhood makes a wonderful Magina. He talks about it. The egg is key.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I think what you do is you're going, here we go, Magina. So it's really the same filling. It's exactly the same filling, but you want to have a lot of eggs. And what it says in here is you're going to take those beaten eggs and you're going to dip each piece of matzah in it because you want it to be a little bit soft. Otherwise, it would be just super crunchy. And once it baked in the oven, it would not be good. So you want to layer, instead of layering in Fila dough, you're going to layer in matzah that's been soaked in egg. And again, the recipe's in here. And I'm sure there's other people out there who are experts in it. And
Alan, Jeannie, Myman say to be careful when doing what you're doing to make sure to use like what you're doing, a glass, a Pyrex bowl, because you need the sides to help there. So exactly how you're doing it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Exactly right.
Well, I've done either 8 or 10 layers, but I'm going to stop here and I'm going to show you the next step because this is actually important. When the Fila bakes up, it's going to be really, really crispy. And it's so crispy that if you baked it just the way it is like this, it would be hard to cut, or when you cut it, it would just kind of flake all over the place and become a real mess, and it wouldn't be easy to serve. So you want to take your same knife that I used to cut the Fila before, and you want to cut squares. If you want it to look really pretty, you can actually cut it in diagonals. I've done that before. It almost looks like a spanakopita that you might see somewhere. Squares is nice. I love it. Super easy. So you want to take that knife and you want to cut into that, before it's baked, into that raw Fila. You don't have to cut all the way to the bottom, but you want to definitely get through the top layer of Fila for sure. And I get mostly to almost all the way to the bottom. And again, this is so that when it comes out of the oven, it's going to be much easier to cut and it won't fall apart and kind of turn into a big flaky mess. So I cut, with this Pyrex, I'm cutting a little bit smaller pieces right now. I cut it 4 the long way, and then I'm gonna cut 6 the short way. So I'm gonna get 24 squares out of this. And these squares are probably appetizer size, or if you're just making it at home for your family, oh, there goes the timer, then it's just take 1 and then maybe take another one if you want more. Okay, so my timer just went off. I'm gonna check my Fila in the oven. Do I have an oven? Yeah. Oh, and they are actually pretty close to perfect. They're a little light. I'm gonna put them in for just like 3 or 4 more minutes to get them a little more golden, but they're pretty dead on. So once you have your Fila scored where it's cut, you're gonna take that same egg wash. So really all the components are the same. It's just instead of triangles in a pan. You take that egg wash and you wanna go right over the top and brush it all along this Fila. And the egg also helps it stay together a little bit and not break apart. Like if you didn't egg it, it would just be so crispy that it would kind of fall apart as you bit into it. Or if you tried to cut a little bit, so the egg just helps it kind of stick together. Okay. I've egged my top, and this can go right in the oven just like this. Again, same thing at 350, and probably similar, 20 to 25 minutes. Might need a little bit more time. I would check it after 20 minutes. Once it's golden, it's done. The meat filling is already cooked, so you're not trying to cook that meat filling. You just want it to be nice and golden brown. You just want the Fila cooked. And that's it. Any questions or anything else? I'd be happy to answer as best as I can. Or if there are any experts out there, answer for me.
Rinah, I can tell you that you did an amazing job, and I am salivating. I want to come over and try some of those Filas. They look really, really amazing. I want to tell everyone that on August 23rd, that's 2 weeks from now, at 10:30 Seattle time or 1:30 on the East Coast, we are going to have Terry Azos making biscochos, and that one is not to be missed. Biscochos with Terry Azos. And then after that, we're going to have Jeannie Myman once again, and she's going to be doing a 2-part series on the Yehiratzones, the special foods that we eat before Rosh Hashanah. So lots of fun things coming up. Rinah, I'm going to let you have the last word, but this was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. You know, again, just my tremendous appreciation to the Seattle Sephardic community and to SBH for taking in this Ashkenazi girl and really being patient and showing me how to bake these amazing, amazing things. And just do it. That's really my big message. Don't be scared. If I can do it, you can do it, and just have fun in the kitchen. Don't be scared of mistakes. It's just how you learn, and just have fun with it. And I think that the more love we put into the cooking that we do and the baking that we do, the more our families feel that love from us, and feel connected to our tradition. And it's just only a good thing. It's just all positive. So get out there, bake. Oh, sounds like my meat Filas are ready. Thanks, Rinah. They're ready to go. If you're in the neighborhood, come on by. Oh, great.
Thank you.